Hello everyone, welcome to Zobrio University's webinar on ACA Reporting Requirements and Training. Today we have Nora Alamari, an application consultant here at Zobrio, to lead the webinar. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat, which is located at the bottom of your screen, and we will go over all questions at the end. I'll now hand over to Nora.
Thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Nora Alamari. I'm sure I have at least talk to you about something or another related to the ACA. I'm here to present the first set of ACA webinars that we are preparing this year. We started really early this year because we wanted to encourage everyone to start getting ready and cleaning up their data before the tax reporting rush time. So hopefully this will be encouraging to everyone. So we're going to be talking about preparing your data. We're not going to talk about any specifics for the 2019 reporting, which will happen in 2020. So we don't have any specific numbers set yet. All we know is that just the due dates, and those are not really set in stone as you have seen in the past. The IRS extends and changes the dates all the time, so let's get started. Before we start, my email is on the screen. Please don't hesitate to email or call me if you have any questions related to this or anything related to the ACA or anything related to any software. Let's go ahead and start. So first, let's refresh the information that we are going to cover, and you already know by now what the ACA reporting is. It is a reporting on a month-by-month basis from you, the employer, to the IRS who was offered health insurance coverage. This includes the cost, the lowest cost of the insurance. Can everyone hear me just fine?
Yes.
Are we okay? All right. So I'm sorry. So this is the reporting to the IRS, the health insurance information that you, the employer, offer to your employees. This means that you will be reporting the lowest cost to the employer on the form, the lowest cost for the employee-only coverage. And along with a couple of sets of codes, you will indicate with these codes what kind of offer it was and why it's affordable. All these are measurements, and all the codes are still not confirmed yet. But if you did any work with the ACA reporting in the past, you will know that they don't change all that much. Just a couple of specific amounts and a couple of specific conditions change. So you need to keep that in mind. Just to start with, right now, we will assume that things will be very much the same. You as an employer are responsible to report the health insurance information to the IRS and to your employers if you have 50 or more full-time employees or full-time equivalents. Now, what that means is that you might have, I'm going to say 42 employees, but you have part-time employees that when you calculate the hours that they worked during the year, you will end up meeting this criteria. There are spreadsheets and there are multiple ways to calculate that. If you need help with that, just let me know. I can direct you to the link to where you can download a spreadsheet that will help you calculate this. Also, your tax attorney or your accountant can definitely help you with this information, but it's really important to remember that Just because you don't have 50 full-time employees does not mean that you do not need to report the ACA information. The due dates, like I said, those are not set in stone. They might change, but initially this is what was announced by the IRS. So end of January is the deadline to furnish the forms to the employees. That's the 1095-C or 1095-B. I know most of you use the 1095-C. If you are going to file by paper, which means if you have 250 employees or less, you have that option. You will need to do that by the 28th of February. If you are going to e-file, that is April 1st, 2020. I believe that is going to be Monday. I'm not sure, but those are the dates. I wouldn't completely count on those dates being the final dates, but initially this is what you need to plan on having things ready by. So we'll get to the subject of this webinar. The reason why we are starting early is we want to encourage everyone to clean up the data that they have and make sure that the data is, as far as the basic information for the employees, all of that is ready for the codes and the amounts that will be released by the IRS later on, and we're not rushed in December or even January to figure things out. The first and most important thing is the name of the employee and, of course, the covered individuals, their spouse and or dependents that are covered by insurance. The name of the employee on the form needs to match their name on their Social Security card, 100%. Every abbreviation, every comma, every junior, senior, anything. It needs to be exactly like it is on the card. Now, that applies to the employee, and that applies to their spouses and their dependents when it comes to health insurance. And failure for that to have, if you don't have that matching, the filing for that employee will be rejected. And that means more time and more cost to you, the employer, to file a correction. If you have used Atrix in the past, you will know that if you e-file with Atrix, there's a minimum charge, and you don't want to go through that. It's an annoying process, and it costs money, and there's no need to do that. We can prepare for that right now. There are ways to check the employee Social Security information, and I can send you information on that if you would like to use those tools. They are available on the SSA's website, and you can use that tool for employees, current and former employees. As far as the spouses and dependents, you cannot check those. So there's still work to be done, even though you can use the SSA's tool, but let me know if you need to know the link for that. There are a couple of ways, and they're very helpful. Another thing is to implement policies and rules for new hires, maybe get a copy of the Social Security card, or just have the employees show you the card. So in your system, in your payroll system, you need to have the name correctly and 100% matching to what's on the card. That way you can avoid having to file a correction or having to pay for the correction filing. The next thing that you can start working on so early in the year is to determine who's full-time and who's part-time. Again, that will help you determine if you should report the ACA information or not. Keep in mind that as far as the Affordable Care Act is concerned, full-time is 30 hours a week or more. Part-time is 30 hours a week is less than 30 hours. Again, there are some tools that can help you determine all this, and you might want to start looking into that because it is rather time-consuming and detailed work to figure all this out. Maybe prepare lists, maybe add attributes to your employee records in your software, regardless of what software you use, but definitely start looking into identifying who's full-time and who's part-time, because those we definitely need to report the offer to full-time employees. We need to report any offer you, the employer, made to any employee, whether if they're not full-time, because you need to. If they were offered, you need to report it. So if a part-time employee was offered health insurance, you need to report that. And we need to know that they are part-time so we can code them correctly. So that's yet another thing. Seasonal employees, we actually, those are, you need to distinguish between seasonal employees and seasonal workers. Seasonal workers are the workers that work 120 days or less in a calendar year. Seasonal employees are a different story, and those you need to report the health insurance offer for them. Again, it all depends on the number of hours these employees work, and you need to keep track of that and maybe prepare a list or, again, add an attribute. The other information you want to prepare and not forget is the new hires, what date they were hired, what date they were offered insurance, and what date the insurance started for them. When did it become effective? And of course, their dependents and spouses if they have those. For employees that left, the terminated employees, you need to know exactly what date they left, and if they decided to get COBRA or if they just terminated, what date did the insurance stop for them? All of this makes a big difference in how we report the coverage, because again, it's on a month-by-month basis, so every day counts. A month is considered part-time if they didn't work for all days of the month. So if they started on the 2nd of the month, that's a part-time month. So the details make a huge difference in reporting. Retirees, that's another category that you need to keep track of. If they retired during the year or if they were retired all year, the code is different, and how we report them makes a huge difference. Then we have any situation where a former employee was offered coverage, any situation, or a dependent that was offered coverage for one reason or another, but not the actual employee or an ex-employee. Everything you can think of that, every situation, any employee, any full-time employee needs to be reported, and any employee that was offered insurance needs to be reported. So that would, a good start would be to make a list and just to get to know what kind of data you have and what you need to be paying, like the details, what details you want to be looking for later on when all the details are announced by the IRS. Other information that that you can start working on right now is the cost of the insurance. So if an employer has more than a package of insurance that they offer to employees, you need to report the cheapest that meets the criteria of the Affordable Care Act. Remember that we are reporting the lowest cost for employee only. Whether the employee is going to sign up for the family package or not, it doesn't matter. It's the offer that matters. The offer needs to be the lowest for employee only. The other thing you want to start gathering information on is the conditions. If the offer to the employee is conditional, we need to know that because the code is different. Some conditions, I can give you examples like no more than 2 dependents, or if it's 2 dependents, it's that, and if it's 3 or more, it's that. If the spouse has coverage or not through their job, then they don't get an offer of coverage. Those we need to know. We need to know these things so we know how to code the offer properly on the form. So all this needs to be known and documented, and you need to keep all the documents on this, by the way, and we're going to talk about what documents you should be keeping for this purpose. Next, I want to talk about something related to the W-2, since we are talking about the name matching how their name looks on the Social Security card, and that is important not just for the ACA, but also for the W-2s. And we're going back to the W-2s here because Box 12, code DD, is related to the ACA because it reports the cost of the coverage. And that means it is the cost employer and employee combined. So if it costs you as an employer, it costs you, I'm just going to throw in $250, and the employee pays another $100. In that box, you will have both amounts added. Although the box is informational only, there's a lot of information that we can talk about when we address the W-2s in another webinar. But because this is related to the insurance coverage and the ACA, I wanted to remind you of that. So initially, you need to keep track of all the costs, how much it costs you, the employer, and how much it costs the employee. And you need to keep track of it in box 12 with the code DD on the W-2 form. And if you need information on that, let me know. I can definitely forward to you some documents that can be very useful. Going back to the documents and safeguarding your data, your ACA data, and any related tax-related information. You want to document definitely the date of hire, the date of termination, the offer forms. They need to be dated and signed by the employee and the employer, and they need to be available for you in case there's an audit or anything that you can just get to the document. The offer details, those might be per package, not per employee, as in, you know, this is what we offer to our employees, this is how much it costs, this is the calculation that proves that it's affordable, it meets the so criteria. All of this that I am sure you can work with your insurance company to have available, and that you meet all these criteria, but definitely you want to keep the documents on all of that. The Social Security card verification, again, because this might be something that you will need and you will go back to. You might want to keep track of this information. Please remember that all of this information needs to be safeguarded and centralized. You cannot have a lot of people accessing this information, so plan according to that, whether it's electronic or actual physical documents. Make sure that you have an assigned department or a person that is maintaining all of this, and that's going to become useful in a couple of slides here, because we're going to talk about the letters that you might be receiving. And again, and the other thing that I wanted to say before I move on from this subject is to educate the employees on what the form is, when to expect it, what to check when they first receive it, and if they don't receive it, what they need to do, who they need to be contacting. All of that is very important to avoid filing corrections, because again, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of money. There is enough time, unlike the W-2s where you have to provide, furnish it to the employee and file with the IRS within January. This, you have a couple of months to work on. So really, there's no need to go back and make any corrections. You can, after you furnish the forms to the employees by the end of January, you have a lot of time to make the corrections and file all the correct information. And at that point, it won't be a correction. It would just be reissuing the form. So again, educate the employees, let them know, although the form is not needed for the employees to file taxes, they still need to keep the form with their tax paperwork. And if nothing changes, that is, it's possible that this year the IRS will say, you need those to file your taxes, but that's not highly unlikely. So corrections. I wanted to remind everyone that you need to file corrections for any form that you filed with the IRS, with the SSA, or with the state as soon as you find out that there's something that went wrong. With the ACA, there are penalties, and there are, and because you have a lot of time, they're usually they're forgiving, but they're not that forgiving, because they give you enough time between providing it to the employees and filing with them, so you have enough time to clean the forms up. The penalty is, the average has been about $250 per form, so you do not want to pay that money, of course. So again, educate the employees, just let them know this is going to happen and this is what you need to do, and check, match the name printed on the form with the Social Security card, and that should take care of 80% or more of the issues that I have seen in the past. So, Letter 226J, this is a huge deal. At this point, I am talking about it because there is a lot of talk about this, that a lot of employers are receiving those these days. This is a letter from the Labor Department, and it is sent to the employer to inform them that something is not totally acceptable with their ACA filing when it comes to a specific employees, 1095. So the one thing you want to keep in mind is when a taxpayer files their, like if I file my taxes and I tell them that I don't have health insurance and here's my employer and here's their address, the letter is going to be sent to the address that the employee provided. So if I send it to the mailroom, it's going to go to the mailroom. And if I send it to another building, it's going to go to that building. And because this letter, you can start working on it. You can call them and say, this is a huge mistake. You can call them or mail the documents that they're asking for. You have 90 days, usually, typically. you don't want to lose time. You want to know about this letter as soon as it is sent to the employer. So again, you need to let everyone know that if you're going to be filing and use the employer's official address and maybe a specific person's mailbox number. Also let everyone know if you receive anything like that to take it to the HR department, because you don't want to lose time. You want to act upon the letter as soon as you see it. Typically, I've seen those, and you can easily just provide the documents that they are asking for, and boom, it's done. When the 90 days are over, it's going to go to the IRS, and you will receive a letter with a penalty amount. Scary amounts, but again, it's possible that you can just provide documentation and problem solved. So just keep that in mind, and just as long as you are aware that these things are going out and someone else might be receiving them, just keep an eye on all of this stuff. So I know that we covered a lot of stuff, even though this is just preparing, but if you have any questions, please let me know. You can email me, you can call me, or you can send a question right now. It's up to you. If you would like to work on this starting now, let us know. Matt's contact information is on the screen right now. You feel free to contact him if you need to do that, so we can get you started on the work. If you need any of the links or any of the spreadsheets and worksheets that I mentioned, let me know. I don't know if we have any questions. No? No questions? Well, I hope everyone found this useful. I hope that if you have any suggestions for the future ACA webinar, let me know. Or if you would like another subject covered, let us know. But you have my email, and Matt's email is on the screen. So I hope you found this useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. A recording of this webinar will be available to you shortly.